The fight between Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev is easily the most fascinating fight on this card, and the fact that it's a 5-round bout adds even more intrigue. It really shifts the dynamic when you're talking about longer fights, especially consider how both of these guys approach their matchups. Let's start with Khamzat Chimaev. His career has been a mix of skyrocketing potential and frustrating stops and starts. I mean, at one point, people were talking about him being a future double champ in the UFC, but fight cancellations and even a brief retirement really slowed his momentum. And let's be real, it's not easy to find opponents willing to step in there with him. The guy is a monster. That said, Robert Whittaker isn't the type to back down from a challenge. Bobby Knuckles will fight anyone, anywhere. Whittaker is a legend, no doubt about it. His resume speaks for itself, but I have to admit there's been this nagging feeling that maybe Whittaker's best days are behind him. The loss to Dricus du Plessis still lingers in my mind. Sure, Dricus has gone on to look even better since, but Whittaker didn't seem like his usual self in that fight. And we can't forget the wheel kick from Paulo Costa, which rocked him hard, even though, to be fair, that's a kick that could have floored almost anyone. But then again, even with that being said, Whittaker has only lost to 2 fighters in the middleweight division, and both of them are arguably the best in the division. One is Israel Adesanya, he pretty much lost to him twice, and he's a former champion, and the other is Dricus du Plessis, who is the current UFC middleweight champion. So I don't think he's washed, he's just lost to the best guys, you know, and I mean, that's the cream of the top at the end of the day. And if we look at his last performance, he had a quick knockout of Ikram Askarov. Whittaker certainly showed that he still has that killer instinct. However, the fight ended so fast that we didn't get to see how Whittaker might have handled Askarov's grappling over the long haul. That's what makes his matchup with Chimaev so compelling. If Chimaev's relentless wrestling and early pressure puts Whittaker in uncomfortable positions, how would he react? The thing is, Chimaev is a tornado in the first round. He's dangerous right from the start, and if Whittaker's defense sharpness has slipped even slightly, he could be in some serious trouble early on. But remember, Whittaker has some of the best takedown defense in the game. He thwarted high-level wrestlers like Yoel Romero and Jacare Souza in the past. Yes, Dricus managed to take him down, but wrestling wasn't the main reason why Whittaker lost that fight. Now, I know some of you think Whittaker doesn't do well under pressure, and I'll be honest, when this fight was first announced, I was leaning towards Khamzat for that very reason. But after seeing how Whittaker dismantled Askarov, I believe he learned from that Dricus du Plessis fight and made adjustments. Whittaker is on a 2-fight win streak, and I think he's going to come into this fight with more aggressive mindset, which could make things very interesting. And even if Whittaker doesn't come out swinging for an early knockout, the key will be to survive the early chaos. Let's not forget that both Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman were able to survive Khamzat's early aggression and drag him into deep waters. Burns in particular showed that Khamzat isn't invincible if you can handle the pressure and force him into scrambles. And look, if Whittaker can keep his composure and weather the storm in the first round, the momentum could shift. His cardio, fight IQ, and experience in longer fights could all play a huge role in turning the tides. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Whittaker pulled off a decision win or even a late stoppage, if he can make it into those later rounds with Chimaev's, where Chimaev's pace slows down, let's be real. All in all, I'm convinced that Whittaker has the tools to hand Khamzat his first loss this weekend. And let's be real, this all comes down to the truth about Khamzat. He's probably the best aggressive style of wrestling and grappling in the game, but the guy has some serious cardio issues. He only seems to have 1 round of cardio for some reason, and his pace is relentless, no doubt about it, but he just cannot maintain it over 5 rounds, and we've seen this time after time. Just look at his fight with Usman as an example. The only reason he won was because they gave him a 10-8 in the first round, which is honestly up for debate. You can even argue the same thing about the 3rd round. Then in his fight with Kevin Holland, he came out with an insane pace, and to Holland's credit, he scrambled well, but by the end you can see that Khamzat was breathing hard and starting to gas out. Now when it comes to Whittaker, that's a whole different story. Whittaker is a lot bigger and more well-rounded than Usman. Khamzat would have to drain his entire gas tank just to try to handle Whittaker, and if he doesn't pace himself right, he could easily gas out and lose control of the fight. Honestly, it wouldn't be surprising if Whittaker made it look easy, given his experience and his conditioning. However, this has to be said, a lot of Dricka's success against Whittaker came from just being so physically dominant, so it's likely that Khamzat will come sprinting at Whittaker looking to take him down right away. The big question in this fight is whether Whittaker can survive the initial onslaught, and honestly, that's where I'm torn. On one hand, it could be too much for Whittaker, and Khamzat might just finish it in the first round with a darts or a rear naked choke. On the other hand, if Whittaker survives the first round, we could see him make it to the second and possibly turn the fight around at that point. Let me tell you, this fight isn't really as close as people think. If Khamzat doesn't get an early finish, Whittaker is going to pick him apart on the feet. The striking gap between them is huge. Now, you might be thinking, but Khamzat's jab could catch Whittaker when he's closing the distance with his blitz. And yeah, that's possible. But here's the thing. The only guy I ever seen Khamzat finish on the feet in the UFC is GM3. And GM3 is a jobber. And sure, he dropped Gilbert Burns, but let's be real. Burns doesn't really have the toughest chin in the division. So while Khamzat is still dangerous early, once the fight starts dragging on, I think Whittaker's striking is going to be too much for him to handle. Do some research and you'll see when Khamzat can't dominate with his grappling, his stand-up is a level below elite strikers like Whittaker. But look, man, if Whittaker wants to beat Khamzat, he's gonna have to pull off more than he's ever done before. Khamzat is part of this new generation of fighters, and the thing that worked against Whittaker's past opponents probably won't cut it here. The margin for error is super small in this fight like this. One mistimed blitz and he can get knocked out cold. Curling up might give Khamzat the opening to take your back, which is dangerous. And look, I'm not doubting Whittaker's ability at all. Honestly, I'm rooting for him to win, and I truly believe he's capable of it, but I've also got to be realistic. This is probably going to be one of the toughest, if not the toughest challenge Whittaker has ever faced. Khamzat brings a unique pressure and aggression that's hard to deal with early on. That's why I think this fight is going to be very one-sided, depending on how it plays out. If Khamzat manages to finish Whittaker in the first round, it could be over quickly. Khamzat's style makes it super dangerous in those early moments. But if Whittaker can survive past the second round, I could see him completely taking over this fight. His experience, cardio, and fight IQ could allow him to weather Khamzat's storm and pick him apart as the fight goes on. So, it all depends on whether Khamzat can get the early finish or if Whittaker can drag him into deep waters and turn it around. Either way, I'm hoping Whittaker pulls it off and earns that well-deserved title shot. Honestly, this one's been tough for me to call, but I think I'm gonna go with Robert Whittaker. I think he'll survive the first round, and I do believe that he's gonna start picking Khamzat apart, eventually getting the finish, probably in the late third round. Remember, this is a 5-round fight, so Whittaker's cardio and experience should come into play. That said, it could easily go the other way if Khamzat pulls off a first round finish, like I mentioned earlier. But regardless, I'm super hyped for this fight on Saturday. What do you guys think? Who do you guys have winning? Drop your predictions in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys on my next one.